In 2019, a movement and an aesthetic took the world by total storm. This aesthetic, of course, being what you clicked on this video for, liminal space, which gave birth to projects like the Backrooms that now have pages and pages of mythos, games and short films based on them, to much more disconnected but tonally inspired projects like the Mandela Catalogue that has a lot of liminal space in it too. It's an aesthetic so recognisable that you literally don't have to have been to the place in the image to know what it is like to be there, because of the strong feeling of nostalgia that these images invoke on the viewer. I can already see it in the comments now, little Timmy saying,
"I'm not really a nostalgic person."
Oh, that's understandable. Okay, in that case then...
Think fast, Chuckle Nuts!
And I rest my case. But how? How are we all having these same feelings when we look at these images? How has an entire generation been defined by a single aesthetic? Why does it feel like we've been to these places before? What is the science? Nerd shit. So to answer that question, I've taken 100 of the best liminal photos to come out of from now to 2019 when this really started booming, and I'm gonna pick out what actually makes a liminal photo down to the positioning, the things in the foreground, background, the colour scheme, the time period. And by the end of this video, hopefully we'll all be able to pick out what makes a great liminal photo, and perhaps what even makes the best liminal photo. For some, this question, and this sentence explaining it, may be completely pointless, but I have to ask the question at the beginning of this video: what is a liminal space? By definition, a liminal space is a place in which you find yourself in a transitional period between two destinations. So, lobbies, hotels, spare rooms in grandparents' houses that feel a little bit uneasy. Places in which a regular everyday person doesn't really belong, and if they do, it's only for a small period of time. But when said liminal space becomes liminal enough to shake the internet, it's usually when you throw in the uncanny, such as oddly repetitious or out of place furniture, or a complete lack thereof, or a sparsity of furniture, or even furniture in the wrong setting. Places you would only ever go in the daytime being photographed at night. These are just a few of the pillars that build up what I believe contributes to a liminal space. But what I find liminal, and this is in many ways sad depending on how you perceive this, but empty multiplayer maps from the original Xbox or Xbox 360 era of gaming. There's something about running around an environment that's usually littered with people every other time you see it, only to have nobody actually there, and no matter how much you run around, you'll never find an opposing player or anyone on your team. However, you will hear the distant noises of war or any other goings-on through the ambient noise. What all of these digital liminal spaces have in common is they're all games from an older era, sometimes even older than me, or maybe I was only 2 when these games came out because I was playing on older consoles for a long time. And I think that has a lot of what is to do with liminal space. It's always stuff just from when you were barely conscious. Something about it reminding you of that part of your childhood when you were so much younger, but taking in so much of your surroundings. For me, since I was a 2003 baby, all of my surroundings that I soaked up were from 2003. So everything I see from 2003, of course, is going to remind me of my childhood, but what you don't really think about when looking at a liminal space is the 80s did happen, the 90s did happen, subsequent years from things left over, you will remember. And I think they also have a very powerful liminal feeling, and that's because whereas they aren't exactly prolific and you don't see them around a lot, it's probably what you was conditioned to when you were a sponge-like child, hence why you remember it now. It's not around anymore, and that's why when you see these images, your brain clings to these visuals from 20 years ago. In itself, this also explains why you can have a overwhelmingly positive reaction and almost a nostalgic and safe feeling from looking at a liminal image. But this feeling isn't the same across the board, because if you ask someone who was born in the 2000s versus someone who was born in the 80s, they're probably going to see nostalgia in things from the 60s and 70s, whereas a 2000s kid may feel nothing at all. To test this theory, I've displayed these images on screen. If you are currently experiencing immense levels of unnerving or joy-stimulating nostalgia that you wouldn't usually feel while viewing any other liminal image, then there's a decent chance that everything I've said about liminal spaces corresponding with age has a solid basis as a theory. But if you're not yet impressed, I can also tell you that you're between the ages of 20 to 35 and British. Before I tell you how I got to that conclusion and I've pinned you down the way I have, let me just apologise to everybody who isn't of that age range and still feels something when looking at those images. This is for a good reason. And that reason is... yes, actually. EastEnders is a prolifically overrated soap inside the UK, which very much every single middle-aged mother will have watched at some point. It's basically One Piece for white British women. If you have a TV in your house, you've definitely seen one of the Mitchells going at it inside of the pub.
Everyone get out! Swing your rope! I said down!
That sounded better in my head. All the images I used to pin down that nostalgic liminal feeling on individual and specific people are from the early 2000s to 90s set of EastEnders. When people like me, who had no interest in EastEnders in 2000 and nothing, will be taking in this information subconsciously and later down the line in life finding it warm and cozy to see these images, or even just slightly unsettling depending on how you feel about these liminal spaces. What this teaches us is the feeling of liminality is both age and locational bias, and heavily connected to nostalgia. Knowing this and having this newfound understanding of how liminality actually works, can audio be liminal? Like, for real, actually, hear me out for a second. Before I go any further, all correct copyright attributations are inside of the description of the video, so please, YouTube gods, be fair, please be fair, and on the assumption that the YouTube on the assumption that the YouTube gods haven't been fair, please do hit subscribe, because that fucking can't talk! That helps my video more than you'd think. Thank you. On with the rest of the video. A few years ago I watched a film called The Dark. The film is amazing. I love this film so much. It's nothing special, it won't blow your socks off, but it's an indie horror film, and it sets you up to think it's a horror film and then throws 100 other things at you as well, and it's great. I love it. It's an hour and a half, it's on YouTube. Not telling you to go watch it, but it is on YouTube somewhere. Wink wink. In the credits of this film, a gut punch of a song starts playing, and for 4 years I couldn't explain why this song was actually digging into my soul. I had dreams so vivid and feverish about this song, in music boxes, in decrepit crates this song would play, just the melody, and I'm gonna play it now, and there's a reason that I find this song liminal, and it's half hilarious, and half just kind of sad, but importantly, I think that it proves what the chemical reaction in the brain is when you feel liminal. And my going theory at this point is, before nostalgia, there's this point where you feel like you know someone, or you feel like you know something, like seeing someone in public who you haven't seen in a decade. Their face is familiar, but you don't want to go up to them just in case it's not them, you know? That feeling of suspension is the similar thing that I can compare liminal to. It's like edging a sneeze. That feeling, that fullness of the brain, it's the same kind of thing with a liminal space, don't you feel? Now I have to ask you, in the comments, are you feeling anything with this song? Are you feeling like you've heard this song before? Because that's how I felt for 4 years, and it haunted me to my very, very core, and I'm gonna let you know exactly why you feel like that too. I have the answers. I am cracking Liminal. I'm cracking the feeling that comes with Liminal that we've all been asking this entire time. Why do we feel the way we feel with these liminal spaces? When I figured this out at random a few days ago, it completely prompted this video, I'm not gonna lie, and it really felt like I had found what the feeling of liminality is, or at least, maybe not the feeling exactly, because I'm not a brain surgeon, and I don't know what actually goes on in the brain. This is all just theory work, based on similar feelings and the same kind of suspension of the mind, as I previously mentioned. When I said that these two songs are exactly the same, they aren't exactly the same. They're actually two separate songs, two separate recordings, but they're made by the same band. This band is called Blonde Redhead, and they recorded both for The Damaged, which was the first song with all of the angelic and almost creepy vocals, and then there was the more orchestral version for The Damaged Coda, which we all know as the Evil Morty song because it was a meme everywhere, hence why you probably will remember it to some degree. That's why I picked this song. It was a few years ago too, hence why that back of your brain feeling was probably tickled listening to the song. With all of this evidence and theory put to bed, I feel like we can finally say that the feeling of liminality is nostalgia before you even reach nostalgia. It's when your brain expects nostalgia is coming, but can't actually tell what the nostalgia is from. So there's a lot of guesswork that makes your brain feel almost fuzzy, in a way. That feeling that you get when looking at a liminal image. In the next video I'm going to be discussing colour and positioning and how it can affect your brain and how you perceive a liminal image. And hopefully that video will be a lot faster too. If we get 1,000 views in the first 24 hours of me uploading this video, I'll go into absolute crunch time. The reason that this video has taken so long is because of the hefty editing style, and I got a job in the last few weeks, so I've been quite wrapped up. But hopefully this one will be a lot faster, and I apologise for the tremendous wait. I hope you got something out of watching this, and it isn't just a retread of everything else you've heard online. I really tried to make sure that I was bringing something new to the table here, and I may have bit off a little bit more than I could chew when it comes to scripting. So thank you, and I apologise for that, I really do. If you did enjoy it, please do subscribe, and I will hope to see you in the next one. Goodbye, chat. Chat? That's Twitch. Oh yeah, my Twitch. There you go. Go follow my Twitch. That's in the description too. Shit. Bye bye.